It's Wednesday night.
The New York Theater Barn
is live!
I see color for the first time. Finally, I can feel the sunshine. My heart's singing for the first time. Baby, is this love? I see color for the first time. Finally, I can feel the sunshine. My heart's singing for the first time. Is this love?
Good evening and welcome to New York Theater Barn's New Work Series Live. I'm Joe Barros and I'm the Artistic Director.
And I am Jen Sandler, and I'm the Associate Artistic Director.
Welcome to the first installment of our 2021 New Work Series and the beginning of our 14th season.
2021, what? New York Theater Barn's New Work Series has been presenting pre-premieres of new musicals during incubation for the past 14 years. And tonight, we are excited to present excerpts from the new musicals, Our New Town and Elektra.
Our New Town is the new musical from Gabriel Jason Dean, Jessie Dean, and David Dabbon. And Elektra is the new musical from twin sisters Emerson May Smith and Murphy Taylor Smith.
So tonight's presentation was rescheduled. It was originally supposed to be last Wednesday, January 6th, but we decided to postpone in observance of the violence and destruction last week at our nation's capital.
Yeah, we felt strongly about leaving the stage open for vital conversations and essential news surrounding this historic event. We also didn't want to upstage the extraordinary work of tonight's storytellers.
Yes, so on a lighter note, welcome to the 34th installment of our virtual New Work Series. And like we said, the first installment of 2021, which is the beginning of our 14th season. And as always, tonight's broadcast is simulcasting to Broadway On Demand, and we are always, always thankful for our friends at Broadway On Demand.
That's right, and it's a new year, but that doesn't mean we'll stop bringing you new work. We're proud to keep original live theater alive during this trying time. Artists and the arts are essential.
Yes, absolutely. And we want to thank you, our audience, for your outstanding support of our programs during this time. Our year-end appeal finished 2 weeks ago with over $11,000 raised. This was made up of almost 100 donors. It surpassed our goal, and we could not do any of this work without your help.
Yes, that's true. And it's a thrilling time to be a part of New York Theater Barn and the development of new musicals. It was exciting to surpass our fundraising goal by almost $1,500. And now here to tell us more about how you can support New York Theater Barn is co-writer of Sam's Room, Dale Sampson.
Hi, I'm Dale Sampson. My show, Sam's Room, which I co-wrote with Trey Coates-Mitchell, Caitlin Bell, and Mark Campbell, has proudly been a part of the New York Theater Barn family for a long time. The show was featured in the New Work series, came to life with a sold-out extended developmental production, and even received the company's inaugural Impact Award. We were also thrilled to be featured last spring in the virtual New Work series, where we were able to learn even more invaluable information about the show. Sam's Room is a pop concert dramedy inspired by real stories of nonverbal teens who find a way to communicate. Shifting between reality and pop star fantasy, this groundbreaking new musical invites audiences inside the imagination of one young man's universal struggle to communicate. The New York Theater Barn family is excited about tonight's original culture-shifting musicals, Our New Town and Elektra. New York Theater Barn is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and your gift tonight is tax deductible. Thank you for supporting live theater and the development of original musicals. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, Dale. We feel lucky to have you and the Sam's Room team in our corner.
And making a gift tonight is easy and fun. Tonight you can quickly donate by text.
Right. The number to give is 631-710-NYTB, 631-710. Those numbers end up being 6982. And like we said when we first started doing this, it's like we're on American Idol and you get to vote for Clay or Ruben or just give money, you know?
Yeah, or Kelly Clarkson.
Or Jessie Marini.
Or New York Theater Barn. Anyway, our December 16th New Work series featured the new musicals, an incomplete list of all the things I'm going to miss when the world is no longer, and Garden of Starflowers. And that first title can say, suck it to a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. Here's a clip from our presentation of Dante Green's An Incomplete List of All the Things I'm Going to Miss When the World is No Longer. Take a look.
Actually met when we were in high school. I think I was actually in middle school at the time and Lyle was in his first year in high school. We were in a band together as well, and I think that's where, you know, the music that we had collaborated on in this musical in particular is actually music that is from when we were in a band together.
I've seen it all. I take it back. I know I haven't seen anything. But when I fall back to sleep tonight, I'll close my eyes, I'll see everything, and everything will be real. What's the deal with you?
My contribution to the show was mainly like collaborating on music, and that music was then used in the show by Dante. And then I helped fill in some gaps that needed a little magic. When we did Incomplete List, I think I was the projection designer slash set designer slash, like I said, just helping out. And that was really where I like dove into the piece and got to like kind of learn what it was about.
It sort of came out of inspiration from a different play called When the Rain Stops Falling by Andrew Bovell. I was just so obsessed with the ideas that the show was talking about, which were climate change and also this multi-generational family. There was a lot of stuff going on in the world that just didn't really feel great. But what felt really great was getting into a room together and like making stuff together. And so I think that's why we decided to focus on the celebration a little bit more. Because if I had the chance to do anything over in this life, I wouldn't do a thing about it. So yeah, let's hear again.
Taking a chance, tracing paths on a finger on a screen. Looking for a fun time. Who would have guessed that it would bring me right back to this? Who would have guessed that it would bring me right back to this? Who would have guessed that it would bring me right back to this?
I think it's so. You go.
I was going to say, I love that song, and you know this already, but I just did a camp with 23 students, a virtual camp, and they got to perform that song from their homes in a pre-recorded video that we edited together. Family members that were sequestered in the house also played instruments with them. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I just was going to say the idea that that was our last broadcast of 2020, that song just speaks volumes of what we've gone through in the last year. And I know he wrote that song before quarantine even happened. So
that's right.
Yeah. Well, that was that show. And here's a clip from last month's presentation of Garden with Starflowers by Masi Asari. Take a look.
Chicago, I was teaching a class on vocal sound and race. And I asked the students to make these curated playlists that were related to the readings that we were doing. And one student presented on the digital avatar Instagram influencer, Michaela, also known as Lil Michaela. I don't know. I had not heard of her, and it fascinated me. She signed with the agency CAA as a CGI influencer. So like, she's not actually a person. She's like a designed image of a person. I was struck by that, and I thought, well, what about the people who actually look like her? Like, what if you woke up one day and found out that someone who looked like you was a digital celebrity? You know?
More than synthetic feelings, a mirage is never true. I want what's real. Who am I even talking to? I never dreamed that I would meet one like you.
And also this idea that like people want to consume content about certain kinds of racialized people, but only when those personas can be like really carefully controlled. You know, it's like the ultimate ideal celebrity from a corporate side. because you can make her say or do whatever you want. And Oscar, he or they, is obsessed with this virtual pop star named Angeline. And Oscar sees this person on surveillance footage that they think is her. And of course, spoiler, it's not. It's Lucy working in her aspirational garden. But Oscar goes and tracks her down in real life.
I'm going in. Excuse me, Angeline. No, it's really you, Angeline. Hey, it's me, Music Fiend. 7,000,017. Just me offline. God, you make real life shine like new, Angeline.
Angeline, the digital pop star, and Lucy, who's a regular person, right, who just has learned that there's someone who looks exactly like her and is not a human. This is the first time the two come face to face. Angeline is going kind of rogue, right? Like she's starting to come into her own awareness as a kind of holographic AI being. So she's running a camouflaging protocol. So her programmers have lost control of her and can't see where she is or, what she's doing.
What are you made of, air? Show me the world out there. I never dreamed, or do I dream? I never dreamed that I would meet one like you.
We had someone last week or last month on the broadcast that thought that Izzy McCalla had a twin sister that did that song with her. And that's just the beauty of what Mossy created, that someone would think that.
Absolutely.
Well, now let's get started with tonight's programming. Our first musical tonight is Electric, which has a book by twin sisters Emerson May Smith and music and lyrics by Murphy Taylor Smith.
A pair of twins, one cisgender, one transgender, are reunited after a decade by a God-sent mission, murder their mother to avenge their father. They are dual heirs to the throne of Argos, a small militaristic city-state under the complete control of their mother, Clytemnestra. Elektra, who's dealt with her mother's violent transphobia for years, is ready to kill. Orestes, returning home in secret from his studies abroad, is not so sure. Argos is crumbling at the end of a years-long war, and the streets hum with violence and talk of profits. Brimming with revolutionary fervor, Electric is a radical trans woman-centered retelling of the Oresteia.
And now joining us from their home are the writers of Electric, Emerson May Smith and Murphy Taylor Smith.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us. So nice to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Where are you joining us from?
We are in our parents' house in Rye, New York. So we're not far from the city, but she is home from school at the University of Michigan, and I just graduated from Penn State this spring. So we've returned to our home, and that's where our ancestral home, and that's where we're coming to you from.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. So like we said, the two of you are identical twin sisters. Emerson, you are a writer, performer, and University of Michigan student. You were recently seen in the world premiere production of Joe Iconis's Love and Hate Nation at New Jersey's Two River Theater, which will be on our broadcast next. You've also created the one-woman play Watchdog at the University of Michigan, and you wrote the short film Radio in collaboration with Murphy, which is about to be produced by UNC Greensboro. Murphy, you are the recent graduate of Penn State University and its prestigious theater program, and were named the 2019 York Theater Company's Neo Writer of the Future. As I mentioned, you collaborated with Emerson on Radio and electro-pop lesbian Ghost Story, which you wrote music and lyrics for. You're also the writer of Results Will Vary, which was a Penn State commission, and you've written for Bedlam Theater Company's web series.
Formed in Bedlams. I didn't write for them, but...
That too.
And their show with UNC Greensboro is in rehearsal as we speak for the first time.
It is starting rehearsals tonight in North Carolina, so we're very excited for that project as well.
Awesome. So Emerson and Murphy, when did you decide to collaborate together, and what inspired you to want to tell this story together?
Well, really, we have been collaborating for quite a long time. Growing up in our house, we just were always a very musical and theatrical, dramatic family. And we also have a younger brother. And yeah, since we were really little, just something we always loved to do was make up random stories and songs and games that involved very complex and often villainous characters to try to create a real world within our own bedrooms and apartments. And since then, we've pretty much been writing together, nonstop. We first started writing music together when we entered high school. And we started writing, she wrote the music and I wrote the lyrics, but she started to discover that she wanted to write her own lyrics. And then right about then, she started working on our first musical together, and actually asked someone else to write the book. And who actually didn't really like musicals and had no interest in musicals and knew very little about musicals. So soon after that, we kind of discovered that maybe we should start writing and collaborating together on bigger stories. And that's about the same time I started writing prose and plays of all kinds. And we just kind of stuck together and thought, oh yeah, we should do this all the time. Yeah, so we started writing our first musical together our sophomore year of high school. And then in our junior year of high school, Emerson came out as transgender and was faced with the reality that there are very few roles for transgender people and non-binary people in musical theater. It is not a medium that has yet really embraced the trans community. We hope to be a part of that change and that embrace. So right around that time, we really wanted to construct something for Emerson to play the lead role in. We were really obsessed with the idea of finding a trans woman-centered narrative. And I had not yet come out as trans yet, but we were both we are invested in this. And we stumbled across the idea of doing a Greek tragedy as a musical. That was kind of like in our periphery because we'd grown up loving Greek theater. It was always a part of our lives. And then it was really finding like Elektra as the character. And we were like, yes, this person as a trans woman is a really interesting twist, because something we weren't as interested in was telling the same kind of transgender narratives that we'd heard a lot about, a coming out story, a coming to terms with one's own body or one's own dysphoria. We really wanted to center a trans woman in a narrative who wasn't particularly obsessed with passing or appealing to cis normative standards of beauty. We really wanted to have a trans woman who was filled with a righteous rage and a fury that allowed her to take big actions and have impact the plot in major ways. And if you're looking for big actions that impact the plot in major ways, you cannot go wrong with Greek theater. So that is where we settled on our journey to find a role that we thought a trans woman would love to play.
And why do you think Greek theater was what you gravitated towards first? You kind of just started talking about that, but I feel like it's such a specific genre.
Absolutely. Well, like Murphy said, we both just love Greek theater. We've always loved Greek myths and stories. I don't know if anyone else grew up with that, Kate, that beautiful illustrated Greek myths edition that I just poured over as a kid. But when we both started getting into theater and started reading the Greek plays for the first time, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and the Oresteia especially, we were just completely struck by the gravity of these stories. They're like these huge narratives that revolve around actually only three characters on stage at the same time. The rest is just chorus. But their actions have these insane ripples and impacts all over, both like politically and religiously, spiritually in these lands. And really the best way to communicate those huge speeches and turning moments has always been with song. Like in the original productions of the Greek plays, there was very likely music going on, very likely the chorus was singing. And today it's hard to find a Greek play, an adaptation of a Greek play that doesn't have rhythm, music, like all of those things involved in the chorus, because it's built right into the text. Like you can't really speak those speeches without almost like, it's kind of like Shakespeare finding the rhythm and the musicality of that language. So we were very excited about that. And also not to sound trite about the events of the past week and also the events of the past 4 years, but as we were writing this story, the world was shifting very intensely around us. And something that has always been powerful to me about Greek stories is the violence in them, the destruction of leaders, the removal of leaders in place of another. And a lot of these themes of how do you run a country? How do you run a city? Who is best to deal with a person in power who does not have the interests of their people and their state at heart? How do you react to something like that? These are questions that were being asked by Sophocles and Euripides and Aeschylus thousands of years ago. And we felt those questions bouncing around us, just like pretty much everybody else in the country has over the past 4 years. And so when we found Elektra and her struggle with her mother, Clytemnestra, this tyrant who controls Argos with an iron fist, we were really excited by that. And we thought that there was a story that we could tell that was different from Aeschylus's version, and also relevant to where we are right now.
How perfect that we impeached our president for the second time today.
The removal of corrupt leaders is a central theme to Electric.
Well, with that said, we'd love to hear about your first song.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as kind of mentioned, we are, it's definitely an adaptation of the Oresteia, but I would say we do our own different version of it. It's the plot kind of spins off from that central iconic scene in the graveyard where Orestes and Elektra meet again. And then we go in our own direction with it. So to give a little bit of preamble, we're going to be doing 2 songs for you tonight, both solos, one from Orestes and one from Elektra. And these are both early in Act 2. So the events of Act 1 play out similarly-ish to the events of the original trilogy, but at that point, Orestes makes the decision to abandon Elektra's plan to avenge their father by murdering their mother, to try to work with her, to reform Argos and its corrupt system from within. So he decides he doesn't want to engage with violence anymore. He doesn't want to add to this endless cycle of murder that his family is engaged with, and he wants to try to reform the system. And a noble goal, but he also, in doing that, abandons and betrays his sister, who he's just come into contact again with after years and years away. And that's so that pain and that struggle is what this song is about. As he learns the ropes of political theater with his mother, he also feels that pain and shame for what he did to Elektra.
And you're going to be singing this yourself.
I will be, and it's called I Could Learn to Live Like This. Talk to strangers, have them pulled. Try to make your changes take hold. Write down everything, use your voice. Small effective change or revolution, it's a simple choice. If I'm a pacifist at heart, it doesn't mean I haven't seen that our city needs a brand new start. But we'll get through. Change is never simple, but the changes have to start with you. I could learn to live like this. After all, what would I miss? Just a girl, just the sister who I sent to the abyss, who I never knew enough to find time to reminisce. Bite your tongue now, master tact. Find a new proposal to enact. Know they like you, know they will. Know the change comes quicker to a handshake than a threat to kill. There's no prophecy to doubt. If you're averse to family curses, break them down to change the story and get out. Start anew, till there's no one left to seek revenge for any men your mother slew. I could learn to live like this. After all, isn't this bliss? Without Elektra we can right what was amiss, but without her by my side, can I learn to live like this? Elektra couldn't see my vision through. Narrow-minded, focused on the past. Elektra, don't you see what we could do? Right our city and our family at last. Or do you know nothing we can do will make it so? Don't get flustered. Don't retreat. Don't mope like Elektra in defeat. Good intentions get you by. You know why he asked it, so contrast it with the simple lie. That kind of violence is exactly why Argos needs a strong police presence on the streets. We won't rest until the city is safe for all people. Thank you. Practice smiling. Gain control. Keep your vision focused on the goal. Know they hate her and hate you. With the pressure growing, just keep going. What else can I do? What else can I do? I could learn to live like this. Play her game and never miss. Learn to live without her and the feelings to dismiss. If you want to break the chain, protect our family's reign, and then I've nothing to explain. I could learn to live like this.
What's the lyric that's good intentions get you by? Something about asked it, contrast it, and it rhymes with lie?
Yeah, so that moment is Orestes gets asked this very provocative question by a reporter about the murders that are still happening on the streets of Argos. And he is affronted by that because he thinks his mother has stopped doing that. And he also is protective of her and doesn't really like what he's hearing. So he says, good intentions get you by. You know why he asked it, so contrast it with a simple lie, which is the first moment he kind of goes against his conscience. And then that little speech is his response to the reporter.
Hi, El Morgan Lee.
Hi, El Morgan. Yeah, so should we move on to the second song?
Well, let's talk first about the development of your show thus far. Tell us more about the path of the show.
Right, so we started writing this when we were in high school. We were, kids, still are kids, and we were basically just working on it with our friends and interested in it through that lens. And then I started school at Penn State, and my voice teacher, Raymond Sage, ran a small new musical workshop development program in the summers at Penn State. And during my freshman year, he asked if we wanted to do Electric as a part of that. So we brought Emmy in, and we had this incredible cast. It was directed by J. Austin Iyer, and that was kind of its first step as okay, let's actually see this on its feet. And since then, we've been working on, we learned a ton, and we've been working on it. And hopefully, we will be doing a production at the University of Michigan. It was supposed to be done this coming spring, but obviously because of the pandemic, things got canceled and shut down. But the University of Michigan's SMTD was interested in the piece, actually through Emerson sharing it in one of her classics class in the acting program there. So they were talking about Greek theater, and she did a little presentation on this, and they became interested. And so that's how kind of we got involved at the University of Michigan in terms of doing a fully realized production there. And hopefully, if the luck holds,
2021,
we will still, or 2022, we will still do a full production of it. And get to learn a ton from that too, and see our work staged professionally for the first time.
Yay. Everyone get that vaccine so we can make that happen.
I know. Seriously.
So now let's hear about our second song.
Amazing. So this is an Elektra solo that happens actually also in the second act. These are both Act 2 solos. And Elektra, one of the reasons we were so fascinated with her is because she's this incredibly devout character. She's devout to the gods. She believes in the gods. And in our version, the gods have been silent for years, ever since the Trojan War, which, for those who know the play, there was a lot of drama in terms of Argos launching its ships to fight in the war. So Elektra, this whole time, even though gods have been silent and almost ridiculed at this point by the people of Argos, Elektra has been devout this whole time. She's been praying for her brother to return and right these wrongs. And then when her brother returns, everything goes completely wrong. And in particular, something happens in the beginning of the second act. Her close friend and lover is murdered by her mother. And it's the final straw that kind of breaks her belief that anything could ever go right. And she directs this screed towards the gods that she thinks have wronged her. So this is her final prayer, and it's called Elektra's Final Prayer. I thought my faith was shaken, but I was not mistaken. Gods whom I've been praying to since I was just a kid, I always kept up hope before Everyone kept saying you had run from this and hid, left us here to fight our endless war. And it was only me saying different. Gods whom I gave everything, respected and revered, who never thought to set things right. But I am not naive enough to claim you've disappeared. You pushed me down with all your might, but I have found new ways to fight. No more songs, no fanfare, no more sending gifts to gods who do not care. There's no need, no one's there, and this is my final prayer. This is my final prayer. Gods, if you were righteous like I always thought you were, if you were really on my side, you would use your powers and your strength to rescue her. But I don't think you even tried, and now my only love has died. No more life, none to share, no more weakness, no more lives that I can spare. It ends now, it ends there, and this is my final prayer. This is my final prayer. I see her face in every bottle that I break. Around me all my spirits swirl, but I still see that lonely girl, the only hope I ever knew of somehow escaping you. Trust me, see me. We were nearly. Gods, do not mistake me for a lover who's in grief, though that is surely what I am. See me as your child who can finally find relief, waiting for you all to give a damn. It took far too long, but now I see it. I take my voice to the sky and cry. If you don't know this by now, then how I never forgive gods who might be watching me or plotting my demise, or if there's no one up above. Suddenly I hate the ones who populate the skies. You know who I'm speaking of, but you aren't worthy of my love. I'm the girl you can't scare, and I will right the wrongs you wouldn't dare. Stop me now, but beware. This is my final prayer. This is my final prayer. This is my final prayer.
Wow, wow, wow.
Dramatic, high stakes.
We've got just one more question for you before we say goodbye.
Yeah, so your story we feel is inspiring and it brings a lot of hope to so many. Do you feel that your experience as trans women coming out in your youth, you think that added a lot to the story and it shaped how the blueprint of the show and how you developed it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think something we've always just felt a lack of is trans stories written by trans people are just different than trans stories written by cis people. Like I've just grown up, and we've both grown up just seeing a lot of queer stories in general kind of mandated by what society thinks transness and queerness and gayness should look and feel like. And just understanding, I think, that we want to tell a story that doesn't look like what we kind of grew up hearing was a really, I don't know, breaking away from that, shaking our tail feathers of some of those was so important in understanding like why we wanted to tell this story and also the best way we could tell it, which is not through a coming out story, not through a story where Elektra realizes how beautiful she is and everything's okay, that for a lot of trans women, transition is way more complicated than that. And we wanted to reflect some of that complexity and that anger. And we feel it too. Yeah. And I think that, we, when we first, both of us, when we had our individual coming out and coming to terms with that, we still wanted to make theater. And initially, I think for both of us, there was this feeling of like, well, I just can't. Like, well, it's just not going to happen. And then through relying on each other and kind of building these stories together, we're able to say, actually, no, that's not it. We are going to be a part of theater. We are going to create things no matter who we are, how we identify, that theater stories should be for everyone and should include everyone. And that's always going to be at the heart of our stories. We're always going to have a million trans characters in all of our shows because why not? There aren't enough. So we're always going to add those.
And I think, we've learned a lot of things from this time, from this pandemic. And one of the big things I think in theater especially is we cannot go back to before. We can do some of the things we did before, but we cannot be the same. We have to be an inclusive community more than we ever have. And we have to have a space for everybody.
Exactly.
This is not a maybe, this is a must.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us and this extraordinary new musical. We can't wait to see more from it.
Thank you both so much. Thank you for having us.
We'll see you next week, Emerson.
I know.
Right.
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Such fantastic songs. Really, really superb songwriting. All right, well, now moving right along. Through music, immersion, and metatheatrics, tonight's second new musical, Our New Town, calls us all to wake up and take ownership of our personal relationship to guns and gun violence. And the irony of last week's destructive and unlawful protests in Washington is astounding. This extraordinary original musical is inevitably a response play to Thornton Wilder's 1938 Pulitzer Prize-winning play, Our Town, and evokes many of its rich themes, but in a contemporary context. Wilder was dissatisfied with the theater of his time, feeling that the theater was not only inadequate, it was evasive. His response was to use a metatheatrical style, with the play being set in the actual theater where the play is being performed, but the year is always 1938. The stage manager introduces the play within a play, which is set in the fictional community of Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, of which props are mimed, and furniture consists of functional actor-driven pieces like chairs, a table, and two iconic A-frame ladders. Wilder was quoted saying, "Our claim, our hope, our despair are in the mind, not in things, not in scenery."
So before we get to Our New Town, here to tell us more about their book, Our Town, here to tell us about Our Town and his new book, Another Day's Begun, Thornton Wilder's Our Town in the 21st Century, is celebrated theater administrator, writer, and advocate, Howard Sherman. Howard, I think you're muted.
People like when I'm muted. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
So you want me to just launch in and talk about the book?
Well, what inspired you to re-examine Our Town in your book and its contributions to the world?
Well, I mean, for the book, I think it's a really interesting play. I actually love the play even more now than when I started working on it. And I think it transcends its time. It transcends a sense of place. I would say to Joe, I'm not sure that it's always set in 1938. I don't think the script says that. I think the metatheatricality of the play is that it's very stripped down. And so it can be an awful lot of places, an awful lot of times, and it can mean an awful lot of things to people. There is a very central message to it that Wilder wanted, which it simply is to appreciate the world around you and the life that you have, because it's brief. But within that, there are countless nuances that can be emphasized. And so the book tells mostly oral histories of productions in the past 20 years. And I describe it in short as talking to, it's about 115 people who spent time living in Grover's Corners.
And I know when you started working on this book, you took a trip to Peterborough. You made this a really special time. What happened when you went on that trip?
Well, actually, my trip to Peterborough was when the book was finished. I only went to Peterborough, New Hampshire. For those who don't know, Peterborough, New Hampshire is where the McDowell colony is. Thornton Wilder spent many summers at McDowell, and Peterborough is widely considered to be the template for Grover's Corners. He never flat out said it was, but you look at the descriptions in the play and you see Grove Street and Main Street, and that's where the town hall is. So it's a remarkable place. For me, the great experience was I went early, and a cousin of mine went with me, and he was very insistent that we get there for sunrise. And so I actually watched the sun come up from the East Hill Cemetery, which is on a hill outside of town, and you can see in the distance the hills, mighty blue they are, as it's said in the play. And that's sort of pretty awesome. I mean, I don't know what else to say, except that you feel like you're in the place. I mean, I love 1776. When I was in second grade, I was very excited to go to the Independence Hall. But this has something larger because of what that cemetery represents in the play.
So we're going to bring you back in a bit, but can you tell everyone how to buy your book?
Oh, well, you can buy my book wherever fine books are sold. It's available for pre-order on Amazon and on Bookshop, and wherever, you go to your local bookstore or check them online and tell them to get it for you. And it comes out on the 28th of January. So we're just 2 weeks away.
You can also head to your website, and we have the website link right here with the section you need to go to.
And I recently bought a copy for one of my students on Amazon.
Cool. That's why, my ranking, I'm sure, shot up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Howard. We'll see you shortly.
Okay.
All right. And that was really fantastic to hear more about Howard's book, and we're going to bring him back shortly. And now it's time to introduce our new town.
Yes, Our New Town has a book and lyrics by Gabriel Jason Dean and Jessie Dean, and music and additional lyrics by David Dabbon. In the aftermath of the deadliest shooting on a college campus in U.S. history, surviving cast members of Thornton Wilder's Our Town put together an unauthorized show as a way to reclaim their theater space and heal their broken community. But when the event is stopped mid-performance, the cast and audience must decide between compliance or defiance. A hyper-theatrical blend of truth with fiction, of scene with song, Our New Town is an immersive musical that puts the audience at the center of an American crisis.
And now joining us from their homes are the writers of Our New Town, Gabriel Jason Dean, Jessie Dean, and David Dabbon.
Hey, everybody. Hi, thanks.
Hi there. Wow. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Tell us where everybody's coming to us from.
We are coming to you from my parents' house in Atlanta, Georgia.
Your ancestral home.
My ancestral home.
Bringing it back.
We happened to come down here at the very start of the pandemic when it was difficult to get groceries in New York with our 2 children, and we ended up staying.
For now.
For now.
Only for now.
Totally for now.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. Gabriel, you've been dubbed feisty as hell by The New Yorker and a great modern American playwright by Broadway World, in case you didn't know. Your work has been produced or developed at celebrated companies such as New York Theater Workshop, Manhattan Theater Club, McCarter Theater, Cherry Lane, the Kennedy Center, Oregon Shakespeare, and Seattle's Children's Theater. Is that all? Your plays include Heartland in Bloom, Terminus, Qualities of Starlight, Entangled, and The Transition of Doodle Pequeño. You've also penned book and lyrics for the young audience's musical Mario and the Comet, and your script for television, We Belong, co-written with your wife, Jessie Dean, was a finalist for the Humanitas New Television Writer Award. Jessie, you are a writer, actor, director, and associate artistic director of Moliere in the Park, Brooklyn's first free theater in Prospect Park. You recently finished writing the full-length feature Get Gomez alongside your husband, Gabriel. You performed and developed plays at La Mama, New York Theater Workshop, 59 East 59th Street Theaters, Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and The Alliance. My friend David My friend David Dabbon, you are an Emmy-nominated and Grammy-nominated composer, arranger, orchestrator, and vocal coach. On Broadway, you were the dance arranger for the Tony-nominated musical Beetlejuice and the musical comedy Send Up Disaster. And you also provided orchestrations for the Broadway biomusical Sondheim on Sondheim.
I always
So
feel
teen.
like when we do these that we're like at someone's funeral and we're giving your eulogy.
And what's so funny about it is that you've done so many other crazy things and worked with so many other people, but we're here for our new town, so we have to kind of get on with the show. So what led to your collaboration as storytellers, and why our town coupled with gun violence?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well,
You guys answer, yeah.
we love David Dabbon. David Dabbon has been our friend for many years. And when we had our son Wilder, he was in bed one night, who is named after Thornton Wilder and Laura Ingalls Wilder and other great Gene Wilder. Lots of good Wilders. He was in bed one night sleeping, and we were reading the news, and there was another shooting that had happened, and in Oregon. And there was just a brief sentence that talked about how all of the survivors' families, all of the victims' families, had to wait at the fairground for news that their loved one was either had passed in the shooting or was killed or was alive. And that really sparked something in us. And we thought, how can we be proactive about this? Because we don't want our son growing up in this kind of environment. We want this to change. So what can we do as artists? What's our responsibility? So we quickly came up with the idea that we should write a show about it. And then we quickly came up with the idea that we should write a musical about it. And we had no clue how to do these things together. And so we applied to the civilians, who were our major support group and friends and allies in this creation. And we worked with them for a full year in their R&D group, writing and developing various formats for what this was going to be, and sort of landed, I mean, there were crazy outlandish
I
things.
remember all of those.
It was real. It was actually set in space.
It was set in space at one point. It was set in space. Everybody got a gun on their 18th birthday, and we were all in space.
It took us a while to get.
Took us a long time
to get here,
but then, do you want to talk about how we eventually landed on our town, or how that framework kind of worked?
Well, David and I had a history of collaboration together. Prior to this, we worked on Mario and the Comet, as you mentioned, Joe. It's a piece that David and I had done, and we had also done a piece for an immersive, like a youth play. I don't know what to call it. It was an immersive youth play, right, David?
It was basically like a musical play that high schools could do, that where you were actually in the high school and you would get to experience. It was called Hall Pass, and you would take your schedule and you go from your biology to choir to different rooms.
Yeah,
and so
you could experience whatever's happening in the room. So David and I very obviously chose the chorus room and wrote some music, but we thought about what would happen, or what does happen in a chorus room when there is a mass shooting going on somewhere nearby, not in the school that they're in, but somewhere nearby. And so we wrote a piece and felt like that was kind of the spark of what would become our new town. We knew we wanted to write something about gun violence together, but specifically for our town, Wilder had been I consider myself an acolyte of Wilder as a writer, and he's sort of, I like to think he's sitting somewhere on my shoulder. He's probably nowhere near me.
I think he's super close.
I mean, I named my son after him. Hopefully, the homage was worth the shoulder sit. But I was teaching it at the time, and that we were working on the show, the civilians, and I had always wanted to do something that was in conversation with our town, and it just kind of clicked. We were talking, Jess and I were talking one evening, and it was about, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks before we were supposed to present the show publicly. We didn't set it in our new town, in Thornton Wilder's our town, until 2 to 3 weeks before we were presenting it with the civilians. So we had a lot of work to do once we discovered this, but it kind of really clicked in place. And the thought was that, as Howard was describing our town as this celebration of life because life is so brief. Well, what would Wilder write today if he were living and he were trying to create something around Grover's Corners? He would have to acknowledge gun violence. It wouldn't be possible to write that kind of play anymore. So we're thinking of what happens when Wilder's version of Our Town, when Grover's Corners becomes corrupted with this sickness, this modern day sickness of mass shootings. And then through much development, we got to the play and the script that we have now.
And how have all of the recent school shootings, and honestly, after last week, the shootings at the Capitol and the destruction there, how have that influenced the way you tell this story?
For me, it sort of deepens my relationship with this play. I was watching the news as all of this was unfolding. I happened to be watching in real time. And afterwards, there was a senator, and I cannot remember who it was that was speaking, but they said something like, I go to work every day, and now I have to worry about going to work and guns being there. And while I did agree with the senator, all I kept thinking was, teachers and students have been dealing with this since 1999, and nothing has been done. And I'm tired of people not taking this personally, of this being an issue on the periphery. And what we aim to create is an immersive experience where the space that is around you is haunted by this event. And that's really important to us. So I think the events of last week have personalized this even more for me.
Just to give a little bit of, contextualization of, the moment that we're living in, there have been fewer mass shootings since the pandemic than really ever, because we're not able to gather anymore. So it's just to say that we're capable of this. We don't have to have a pandemic to do it. If we had gun legislation, we could make a change.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for sharing your inspirations and how these events have affected your show. And also for sharing the development about how your journey began with, expanded with the Civilians R&D group. Also, I wanted to acknowledge that your show had its world premiere production in October of 2019 at Wagner College, and I'd love to bring on the director of that production, Teresa McCarthy.
We're going to bring back on Howard. Hello. Howard as well.
So Teresa, thank you so much for joining us. In addition to being a director, you are an incredible performer who has brought to life the works of Adam Guettel, Michael John LaChiusa, and you were in the original production of Titanic. And we've had the great privilege of getting to work with you at New York Theater Barn as well. I'd love to hear from you more about what it was like to bring this show to life, and also if you could also speak to the fact that the threat of gun violence actually hit Wagner's campus on September 25th, 2019, when a professor threatened basically to shoot other students.
Yeah, oh gosh. Wow, that's exciting. I didn't know I was going to be talking about that, but I will do my best. I'm so lucky to be a part of the Wagner College Theater Department. It is a most wonderful community, and our students are avid, beautiful seekers, artists, intellects. And so I began this new works program at Wagner a couple of years before we brought this project on, and I was looking for a new project to do in workshop first. We're going to do a reading of it. A 2-week rehearsal reading of it. And I called up David, because David always has something good. And he said, I might have something. And he sent over the script that he and Jessie and Gabriel wrote. And I glanced at it. It was about 6 months before we were supposed to go. And I said, it's fantastic. Let's do it. And we workshopped it. They're so responsive. They're amazing. They came and worked with us in the room, which is a thrill for the students, and there was very little rewriting, honestly. I mean, it was really, it's a beautifully solid, realized piece right from the beginning. And I don't know, just super lucky that we got to have a chance to embody that for these writers. I think this piece should be done at every college around the country, every college, every university. It's exquisite. It's so fun to figure out. It's meta. It feels like a documentary. There's a lot of opportunity for actors to practice different acting skills. It was really a beautiful experience for all of us. And then we did have a faculty member at our campus who kind of lost his mind one day and threatened. He didn't have a gun at school, but he was escorted off the campus.
Wow. And Howard,
Yeah.
you ventured all the way to Staten Island to see this show. You know, as an avid Our Town fan, how did the show resonate with you?
It's so extraordinary once you get to know the script of Our Town as well as I did. When you watch something like this, and indeed this, as to where you recognize what's being referenced. I mean, there may be some audience members who may have once seen Our Town sometime, but it's the subtle things, the parallels, or the things that are opposite. I mean, what struck me about seeing this, and indeed there are a couple of other plays, not musicals, which bring gun violence into Grover's Corners in some way, that all of them look at Our Town. What was tragedy that would befall a young person at the turn of the 20th century? Well, for a young woman, it was to die in childbirth. Now, what is one of the leading causes of death of young people in this country? Gun violence. So indeed, there's an incredible parallel, incredibly sad parallel, and it's as I think I don't know if Teresa said it or Gabe or Jessie said it. It's very meta in the sense that their play is referencing another play. The people in the audience are watching the play put on. So there's layer after layer. And what that does is in a way, it echoes exactly what Our Town tries to do, which is not to say just, here's the story we want to tell you, watch it and feel something, but in fact wants you to become a part of the story that's being told, and that your feelings may not always come directly from what you're watching on stage, but it's what Our Town does, what Our New Town does, is it summons. And of course, for some people, they'd say, oh, I don't want to see a show about that involves gun violence. It's, and no pun intended, it's triggering. And but the question is, for many people, does it become cathartic? And does it become a caution? Our Town is a caution about letting the world go by and not realizing what's happening. Our New Town is a caution about the relationship of creating art in a universe where too many people are lost too suddenly.
Absolutely.
They can decide if they agree with what I'm saying.
I'm going to take notes. It's a really great, that's a really great way of saying that, Howard.
So before we go ahead with our first song, we have some clips from the Wagner production. Take a look, everyone.
So, right here in this moment, we wish we could say some lines from Our Town, but we can't do that.
Because copyright laws.
So, instead, we want you to think back to a time when you read Our Town.
Because everybody ever has read it.
Mutual burdens bear, and often for each other flows the sympathizing tear. When we asunder part, it gives us inward pain, but we shall still be joined in heart and hope to meet again.
Well, it certainly looked like a fantastic production, of which Howard mentioned is a cautionary tale and also summons. So before we take a look at the first song, David, could you just tell us a little bit more about how the music affects this world and summons its audience?
Sure. One of the things that we had talked about when we started writing it was that we wanted the idea of music to actually come from the cast, because they're in a space that they're not supposed to be in, and they're also trying to be very secretive at the same time. Their resources as individuals being in that space is what they have to bring in there. So you have guitars, hand drums, and glockenspiel, and so I think a lot of the music was created to be as if, when I sat down to write some music, it was like, what do I feel wants to come out of me at this specific moment? If I were at a vigil and talking about these feelings and how to express them, it came from a place of either what music I'd be listening to or things from around me, as well as also what would I be able to groove to. You're dealing with such heavy material. How do we use music as a way to help further the story and also bring in different texture? The opening number is an up-tempo song that feels like you're at a campfire and people singing in harmony together, and it's rhythmic and it layers on. And so that was something that was really important to all of us, is to figure out how to bring buoyancy and light and connection, because I think another part of the music is the chemistry between these characters making music together. It's therapeutic, it's cathartic, it's there's nothing like having harmonies. And even the clip that you just heard of music is the hymn "Blessed Be the Tie That Binds" that I arranged. There's something of when you're singing with people, it does something different than when you're singing a solo, and that was something that was really key to this, that it felt like an ensemble piece.
So what is the first song we're going to see tonight?
The first song that we're going to see is... Oh, Joe, did you want to jump in?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say really quickly that there is a lot of light and a lot of humor. And there's a song that we're not going to see tonight that's sung by William Wallace that is a lot of fun and brings a lot of light to the show.
Yes, I wrote the lyrics for that song, and I adore that song. So I won't play it tonight, but we can't. You'll have to see it in person. The show that we're going to see, or the first song that we're going to see, is "Line in the Sand," and it's a real pivot point. It's a real anthem for this piece. David did such a great job of bringing the sound of youth into this song that I think is super important. When Gabriel and I sat down to sort of envision this song, I wrote down a list of school shootings and the dates of those shootings, not just school shootings, but I love researching stuff. So I wrote down all these shootings and all the dates. And the first thing I wrote down was Columbine in '99. And Gabriel sort of took that and ran with it. And that is one of the first lyrics. That's the first lyric of the song. So
this is the cast of Wagner's Our New Town singing "Line in the Sand."
Columbine in '99. I'm 2 years old at the time. What a way to start my life.
Sandy Hook takes 27. I've just turned 11. Is this what it means to be alive? Virginia Tech, 32 gone. Different day, same old song. This is the life we have known. Omar Martin wrecks my sweet 16. The pulse flatlines in Florida. 10/1/2015. I'm the homecoming queen. 9 die in Roseburg, Oregon. Vegas takes 58 more. Different day, same old score. But it can't be the same anymore.
We weep, we pray, light candles and say never, never again. Then we sleep, then we play, fight new battles anyway. It happens again and again. Just background until it's our town. This is our line in the sand. Valentine's just last year. I kiss a boy, say I'm queer. 17 die in Parkland.
Music theater camp at state. Singing Hamilton, life is great. 9 black lives in Charleston. Sutherland Springs, 25 gone. Different day, same old song. This is the life we have known.
Tree of Life, my hometown, 11 souls cut down. Pittsburgh feels so hollow.
2012, I'm 10, I take ballet, love Batman, Aurora in Colorado. Fort Hood takes 14 more. Different day, same old score, but it can't be the same anymore.
We weep, we pray, light candles and say never, never again. Then we sleep, then we play, fight new battles anyway. It happens again and again. Just background until it's our time. This is our line in the I don't wanna give another day. I don't wanna name another name. I don't wanna live my life in fear. I wanna say this ends here. We weep, we pray, light candles and say never, never again. Then we sleep, then we play, fight new battles anyway. It happens again and again. Just background until it's our time. This is our line in the sand.
That cast has been so incredible throughout this process, and it feels very, very special to I'm glad we got to preserve it with them singing it in this way. And and Teresa, thanks for bringing all that together.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for writing it.
It's so wild. Jen was just saying on a Zoom earlier that, she'll always remember where she was on January 6th, or just like she'll always remember where she was for 9/11 or Princess Diana. And when I hear the word Columbine, I know, I'm immediately sucked back to that place and that time in the 90s, and that feeling. And what's so bizarre about that day is it was before the world was really connected, but I had AOL, and you could go in chat rooms and you could find people who lived in that town and went to that high school. And I remember getting to talk to kids who evacuated the school that night. Anyway, super random, but I had to share that with you.
So what is the next song we're going to see?
The next song is called "I'll Carry You," and it's from the last quarter of the show. So the conceit of the way that the kids wrote the show is that they interviewed members of the community, and then brought back some of those interviews, and then created these songs and scenes that we see. And they never really acknowledge who the shooter is or talk about the shooter or any of his family until this moment in the show. And the line that leads into the song, which I think is the way I want to do this, is losing a kid is every parent's worst nightmare, but having a child who becomes a killer, ...
Here's I'll Carry You, sung by Jessie Dean.
Na 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 na. A girl, a boy in the back of a van. He looks at her, she offers her hand. A few weeks later, their boy's on the way. When she tells him he's got nothing to say. From that day on, no matter my plans, I carry your life in the palm of my hand. I carry you. light, love, and oneness. I carry you. We got married when I was 19, and for a while he did the right thing, but then he split before you could walk. Not a man, just a boy who felt caught. That minute on, no matter my plans, I carry you in the palm of my hand. I carry you, lost in aloneness. I carry you. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Just you and me, somehow we made it work. You told me, Mom, one day I'll make my mark. And I thought, he's ambitious, that's good. But now I know how I misunderstood. A child can only hide so much. How was I so out of touch? I should have known you were alone. I could have been stronger, held you for longer. Sure, there were signs a mother's love can be blind. A boy undone, left alone. I am now on my own, mine to own. Now I live in the fog of what you did, but all I see is my fair-haired little kid. I want to say you were not my son, but you are mine despite what you have done. This moment on, no matter my plans, I'll carry your deed in the palm of my hand. I carry you, rage, cold, and darkness. I carry you. How long must I carry you?
Beautiful song.
That's so amazing.
The lyric is so chilling. Your mind, despite what you have done. Oh,
So I think we want to end this discussion. We were saying when we first were speaking about this broadcast, Howard was telling us that, you know, Our Town is a show that isn't always studied anymore in schools, which baffled me because I did it my freshman year of high school. Do you hope that Our Town stays relevant, and do you hope your show will aid in this? You know, why do we think Our Town is a show we need to keep seeing? Anyone can go.
I will say, I mean, I just to echo what Howard said. Our Town is the celebration of life and of love and ultimately of death too. The entire cycle, and it is sort of the quintessential timeless play. I don't think we're going to see it not being done anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think it'll disappear at all. I frankly think it's going to be really the first American play that's going to go on past a century. It's already 83 years old at this point. It was remarkable to me when I was doing the book, of all these people I interviewed, how many said they didn't know it, or they knew something about it and had decided they didn't like it. Mm-hmm. And every one of these people who did a production, of course, said it came around and it profoundly changed them. And I think if people can pull the cobwebs away, you know, David Cromer's production certainly in Chicago and in New York and even in London started to do that and made people see that our town doesn't have to be a sepia-toned postcard to a bygone era.
Yeah.
That was genius. Would anyone else like to go?
I mean, I hope our show, does reinvigorate curiosity, certainly, about our town. But yeah, it's certainly been a privilege to work within the themes and the having sort of sharing that headspace with Wilder. It's been an incredible journey. We're still on.
Well, our town is an American staple, and we can't wait for our new town to be so, as well as this incredible book, Another Day's Begun. So thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Wow, it was really, really exciting. Well, that's our show for tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Actually, we'll be back next week, partially an old script, on Wednesday, January 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with the new musicals Love and Hate Nation and Experience Marianas.
Yes, Love and Hate Nation is written by my friend, Joe Iconis, and Experience Marianas is written by my other friend, Rabro Kiki, and Sarah Beth Pfeiffer.
Never heard of these writers, so I can't wait to see what they've brought to the world. It takes an incredible amount of work to make tonight's show happen, and in order to continue to lift up artists and original musicals, we really need your help. So please join our generous donors by making your gift today on our website at nytheaterbarn.org/give. And as we said, you can also donate quickly, American Idol style, by text at 631-710-NYTB. That's 631-710-6982. Those details also follow below in the video description here and on the screen.
Yes, again, if you didn't get it the first or second time, that link is nytheaterbarn.org/give or 631-710-NYTB, aka 6982 are the last 4 digits. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and thank you for supporting live theater as always.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
New York Theater Barn gave me a vital platform for showcase and development at an early point in my career. And then they continued to invite me back, simply asking, hey, what's new? I'm very grateful to New York Theater Barn for their ongoing efforts to support artists and development.
I was fortunate enough to work on a musical there, and we did a reading, and we had never heard it before. And what we learned from that reading and the notes we got from Joe were invaluable. And thank God for the New York Theater Barn.
New York Theater Barn's new work series was our first creative endeavor of the pandemic and our first experience with virtual theater. It set the bar for live stream presentations, not just for us, but for new musical theater development across the country and the world.
You should support places and organizations like the New York Theater Barn because there's really nothing like it in the country. I mean, they incubate new musicals and discover new emerging writers and focus on playwrights of color. It's pretty incredible, and I'm so honored to be a part of the New York Theater Barn family.
I urge you to donate and support them because they're a great theater company, and I expect to be able to see more from them soon. So congratulations to New York Theater Barn on what you do, and don't forget, people, donate to them.